I was wrong about it being mid. I think it's good now. Before you type anything, that's what this video is about. Stop. Let's rewind for a second here. Let's rewind to a video that I posted in around late 2019. The video in question is a Kingdom Hearts game tier list that I made. Obviously going over my rankings of what I feel the best and worst Kingdom Hearts games are. That's what tier lists are. And that video hasn't aged all that well. A lot of my opinions have changed from what I stated in that video. I don't even know why I have it up still. Plus, look at how fucking awful I look in the video. Did I just wake up? But there's one opinion in there that I want to focus on for this video because, man, did I get it wrong. Let's see what I had to say about a certain game that started an entire fucking franchise. Moving on to C. Oh, I know I'm gonna make some people mad with this one. The original Kingdom Hearts 1. Everyone has good memories of playing it and stuff like that. Just because I'm putting it at C doesn't mean I'm saying it's a bad game. But God, is it starting to get dated. Say that again. Say that again, Matt.
But God, is it starting to get dated.
What the fuck? What? Why? Why did I say that? Oh boy, has my opinion changed since then. I was wrong about Kingdom Hearts 1. It's not mid. It's good. In fact, it's great. Now what's prompting me to make this video? Why am I dealing self-inflicted damage on my past self? Well, let me explain my history with Kingdom Hearts 1 because it's kind of complicated. My first ever Kingdom Hearts was Kingdom Hearts 2 back in 2006. I had no idea what Kingdom Hearts 1 even was when buying Kingdom Hearts 2. I had never heard of it up to that point. I just saw Mickey and Donald on the cover, and I was like, hey, I'm 6 years old. I like Disney shit. I'll buy it. Plus, it was like one of those shiny covers too, and I thought that was like really cool. So I was too young when the original Kingdom Hearts came out. I was only 2 years old when that came out, and also I didn't have a PS2 until 2005, around the time Kingdom Hearts 2 started coming out. So it just happened to work out that way. I had no idea what Kingdom Hearts 1 was. I didn't even know that it was a second title until booting the game up. Obviously, when I realized that it was a 2 and all this other story stuff that I saw, I had no idea what the fuck was going on. I started to seek out Kingdom Hearts 1. But obviously, Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 are very different games, especially in the gameplay department. Kingdom Hearts 2 is much more energetic, it's much more fast-paced, it's much more out there, a lot more elements added to the gameplay, there's a lot more stuff going on in the story. So when picking up Kingdom Hearts 1 for the first time, and first trying it out, I had the impression of Kingdom Hearts 2 in my mind, and that probably wasn't the best way to start playing Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts 1's much more slower, much more grounded, much less grander in scale than I would say Kingdom Hearts 2 is. Not to say that Kingdom Hearts 1 is not grand, it's just not as grand as Kingdom Hearts 2. So when picking that game up and starting to play it, I was not impressed. I thought, yo, this game is too slow, these controls are not good, these platforming sucks. All of this sort of stuff was going through my head when I was playing Kingdom Hearts 1. I didn't think the game was like bad or anything. Maybe in my hyperbolic 8-year-old mind, I thought it was, I don't know. But I just didn't think it was nearly as good as Kingdom Hearts 2. I didn't see a reason to play it over Kingdom Hearts 2, even though I didn't know what was going on in the story, especially back then because internet resources were not as readily available for that kind of stuff back then. And I put the game down after a while and didn't finish it when I first got it. I didn't finish it until much, much later. And even then, I still wasn't that impressed at the time. So I thought the game was mid. I thought it was all right. I know that's where all this stuff started, but that's just all I saw it as. I kind of left it at that. Well, recently, I've been trying to get back into Kingdom Hearts again, because honestly, I've been kind of out of it for a couple of years at this point. Ever since Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind came out, and the Kingdom Hearts 3 hype train just died down and went away, I didn't really see much of a reason to keep going with Kingdom Hearts. I was in college at the time. I was starting to focus on my career and what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So I started focusing on that more and kind of left Kingdom Hearts on the wayside. I have a whole wall dedicated to Kingdom Hearts on the back of my apartment back here. But even then, I was kind of out of it for a long time. But due to recent events in my life, I've had a lot more time open up to try this out again. And the first game that I started out with was Kingdom Hearts 1. And this time having like a more clearer head, maybe this time it will be different. I'll find something that I missed and it will click for me. I just finished it a few days ago and my God, I was wrong about this game. This game fucking rules. I find much more love and appreciation for the original Kingdom Hearts now than I did before, and I think this game is pretty freaking awesome. Not perfect, but pretty freaking awesome. So there's 4 main aspects of the game that I want to talk about in this video to discuss why I think it's good now, why I think I was wrong about it before, and why I think this game is definitely something that still holds up to this day. Now, keep in mind, all of this is my thoughts and opinions. This is all coming from me personally. You can have your own opinions on Kingdom Hearts 1 if you want, but this is just why I think this is something I was wrong about before. And disclaimer, I did not record a lot of my gameplay for this recent playthrough, and even when I did record some gameplay, it was corrupted because my capture card sucks. So I'm going to be using gameplay from another source. I will be leaving that in the description. Go check it out. It is pretty freaking awesome. Number 1, the story. Now, this is actually something that I've never really had much of a problem with. I've actually fairly enjoyed the story of Kingdom Hearts 1, but again, when I first played it back in around 2007, right after I got Kingdom Hearts 2, I was thinking like, this is not as like grandiose as Kingdom Hearts 2, this is much more simpler, and I equated that to being not as good. An 8-year-old mind, ladies and gentlemen. It's a simple story about a kid who lives on an island with his few friends. Things go haywire. He's the Keyblade's chosen one. There's only one Keyblade chosen one. That's for sure. And he has to stop the Heartless from consuming all the worlds. And defeat a bad guy at the end. That's all you really got. And my 8-year-old mind made the studious deduction that less complex means more bad. Ew. Well, now that we're 20 years removed from the original Kingdom Hearts and the story has gotten a little bit more complicated, to say the very least. What they're trying to go for in this original game, which is more of trying to recreate a Disney movie in a game and try to put some more fantasy elements in it and stuff like that. I think they did a really good job at it. I think it's really quaint. I think it's kind of cute. I mean, there's also the aspect as well that this was the first experiment that they were doing with this concept of crossing Disney with Final Fantasy, so they weren't really sure if it was going to be too successful or not, so I guess they tried to tell a more self-contained story. I mean, there's those complex ideas and setting up sequels in there, obviously, but I'm sure they didn't go too complicated with it and tried to keep it a more simple thing. And of course, you're advertising to a Disney audience as well. That younger audience is not immediately going to get a lot of these more complex ideas. Them trying to go for a little bit more of a simpler story of just a feud between light and darkness, a story of friendship, and it's executed quite well. I mean, we're talking about Square here, though, the kings of storytelling in RPGs and also just RPGs in general. So I'm sure no matter what they would have gone with, I think it would have gone over well because these people know what the fuck they're doing. What they did was just laid out a good fantasy story that kids could relate to and adults could relate to. Plant little seeds that can be grown into much bigger things later, and you know, you can sucker people in that way. It's done really well. For one, I think it has a great amount of build-up. I think starting out on Destiny Islands for the story is a great start to the game. Doesn't go in guns blazing. No, you get to spend time with these characters, you get to spend time understanding them, why they have such connection, why their friendship really, really matters to them, experience what their daily lives are like, kind of like as innocent kids, just doing simple things like, oh, get this rope and other equipment for me, oh, we're gonna do this race, or oh, we're gonna sail off and we're gonna see all the other worlds and stuff like that. Some very childlike stuff, and get to understand why when shit hits the fan, it's such a big drastic change, and why there's so much stakes in trying to find them later on in the game. I think it's great to set the story up like that. One of the problems I do have with Kingdom Hearts 2 is that the intro is just a teeny bit too long. You know, I think they could have shaved off a little bit from it, but I think Destiny Islands is the perfect amount of length. It's not too long, it's not too short. You get to spend the right amount of time getting to know these characters. 2, they don't try to recreate the entire story of these movies in the Disney worlds themselves. I mean, they try to in some instances, try to tell their own like little self-contained independent stories, try to go their own way with it while incorporating a lot of the elements of the original movie into the plot. And I think that going their own way with it, try to adapting it to this story, I think was a really good idea on them to do that, and not just do a full-on recreation of each movie. It makes the game itself feel like its own Disney movie. You're just going to all these other Disney worlds as well. And 3, pun intended here, the amount of heart that is in the story, just the amount of heart and love that they poured into this is really, really evident when you look at it and see how much, you know, just fun they had with it. They didn't try and go too serious with it. They included a lot of jokes and a lot of cool humor here and there that a lot of the Disney audience would really appreciate. I'm sure Disney had a lot of input into that as well and, you know, guided them through that process to make sure that the heart is in there too. Nomura and the team did a really good job of building a good story that could appeal to kids, but, you know, the heart in there as well can appeal to adults as well. The reason why a lot of adults still like Disney movies, because, you know, that's the heart and the passion and the good messages that are in it are evident. I guess some problem I still have with it is that the main villain of the game is not introduced until much later on in the game, and you don't get to know him as much and don't get to know his motivations. And he's like, oh yeah, it's this handsome guy. I heard about him. And then he just shows up and is like, hey, I'm bad. Overall, great story. Really nailed the Disney vibe that they were setting out to create for this game. You know, because of the little seeds here and there, it's really, really nice to see where those seeds blossomed into later on. Related to that, number 2 is characters. Now, I think they really nailed this. You know, crossing these Disney and Final Fantasy stuff. On paper, it sounds like a ridiculous idea. Creating characters based on that concept could sound like a crazy task to do. But again, I think they really nailed it. Sora is just an average kid for the most part. You know, he's not had too many crazy experiences in his life before up to this point. You know, he's seen a random girl show up on the beach one day, and this other weird looking girl showed up once, and he just had some weird feelings in his heart because of that. But, you know, that wasn't part of the plot at this point. You know, that was added in later. He's just a normal kid, and all this stuff's kind of thrown upon him. At first, you could see him as like maybe a little bit too whimsical. Has just like, oh boy, oh my goodness, wow, oh my gosh, look at that. Woo! But again, that's part of the Disney style that they're going for, and I think they implemented that pretty good with Sora's character. Some people might find him annoying, and I guess I could see that initially when you do that, but once you get farther in the story and get to know him better and get on his adventures and stuff like that, you get to have a better connection with him, and I think that problem kind of goes away for most people. He just wants to go back to his island and have fun with his friends, and all that stuff's just messed up, and he tries his hardest to get it back to normal. And, you know, obviously with Kingdom Hearts shenanigans, that didn't all work out. Back when I was a kid, I could relate to all that stuff. Kairi is your typical teenage girl. I'm sure some people find her as like an annoying kind of person and a damsel in distress a little bit. But come on, again, they're kids. What do you want? What do you want? They're not Shakespearean actors, for Christ's sake. Riku is kind of your typical edgy teenager kind of character. Got some darkness in him and some angst, and he's written as that kind of character. Donald and Goofy, great companions. Obviously, they're classic characters for a reason, and I think they made the good choice of making them his companions throughout the story. I'm sure they wanted to include Mickey in that kind of capacity in some way, but Disney did not. They had this game coming out at the same time that Mickey was also in, and they didn't want to have competition with that, so he only showed up as like a little silhouette at the end of the game. You had to include the Final Fantasy characters in there as well, because it's Disney mixed with Final Fantasy. You got to appeal to the main Square crowd in some way. Having characters like Cloud and Leon and Sephiroth and all those great people, mainly from Final Fantasy 7 and 8. And of course, you had like little younger versions of Tidus and Waka from Final Fantasy 10. That game I like just came out at that point, so it's a little cross promotion with that game, which is kind of cool. And I'm sure a lot of kids, that includes myself, were introduced to these characters through Kingdom Hearts. I had no idea who Cloud was before playing Kingdom Hearts. Found out later, and, you know, I was like, oh my goodness, there's a whole nother series of this shit. And I'm sure a lot of kids got introduced to Final Fantasy because of that. Like I mentioned with the story, they didn't try to go too complex with this stuff. Appealed to that Disney audience, and it worked best for the story. Number 3 is graphics.
Whoa, nice
now,
graphics.
most games
Looks like
20
you get
years
my hands
ago,
on
at least
that
for like the
game.
PS2 and stuff like that, a lot of those games haven't aged all that well. I mean, it's held up, I think, better than some other generations would in the future. And that style is starting to become like retro cool now, that is 20 years later. But I do think that it's starting to get the tiniest bit dated. But like other games that generation that have aged pretty well, like the Wind Waker, for example, it went for its own art style, that being the Disney art style. And because of that, it has aged pretty well, in my opinion. I mean, playing the PS2 with component cables, which was what I have, on a modern day HD TV doesn't look all that great. A lot of stuff's fuzzy, especially with what converters you're using and stuff like that. So depending on your setup, it can look a little different if you're playing on the original hardware. But since it's not going for a highly detailed, fully realistic art style, it has its own cartoony look. It's very smooth, it's very colorful, it's very vibrant. The game holds up on anything you play it on, really. And of course, they ported the games to HD, so you know that's the main way you play it nowadays. And even when you upscale it to HD, the game still looks pretty nice. There are some stuff that does look a little bit dated, like some individual objects here and there kind of looks a little bit dated, and some stuff's a little pixelated and blocky. Doesn't get in the way at all. That is a slim minority of what is in the game itself. Most of the stuff looks pretty great, especially when you're in the Disney worlds, because again, they're basically recreating a Disney movie, a 2D Disney movie in 3D, and it kind of brings them to life almost. It gives them a whole new aspect to look at them at, and it's really, really great. The graphics hold up, okay? It holds up. That's my point. Next, and finally at number 4, the reason that kept me from liking Kingdom Hearts 1 for so long the gameplay. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning, Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 are very different games, especially gameplay-wise. Kingdom Hearts 2, much more fast-paced, much more energetic. Kingdom Hearts 1, not as much. And when I first played Kingdom Hearts 2, my little 7-year-old mind was fucking blown away by how much craziness was going on in it, and I thought it was amazing, and I thought it was incredible. That gave me, I think, a bad impression going into Kingdom Hearts 1, and when I first played it, I thought the gameplay was kind of stale. I thought there wasn't as much going on in it, I thought there wasn't as much to explore as there was in Kingdom Hearts 2, and because of that, me no liking. And I still had that impression going into this recent playthrough. For some reason, I don't know why. I'm 23 years old. I should have grown up, but fuck it. That's how I feel. And again, I don't know what that guy was smoking because I love this gameplay. What the fuck? It does have a lot of the same stuff that Kingdom Hearts 2 has. Obviously, Kingdom Hearts 2 is an expansion on Kingdom Hearts 1, so there's more stuff in it. But the stuff that they have in Kingdom Hearts 1 is pretty standard affair. You fight enemies to level up. You get new abilities as you level up, you get new weapons as you level up and progress through the story, you learn new things, you learn new tactics, you gain new spells. Standard RPG stuff. I mean, Squares were the kings of that, so of course they were going to nail that part. But from where they went different for a lot of other Square Enix RPGs at the time, is that they decided to go for a real-time action system instead of a turn-based one, which I think was a great choice. Because imagine Kingdom Hearts with a turn-based system. Oh, scratch that, forget I said that. I guess it just comes down to personal preference because I'm a big fan of real-time stuff. I don't like turn-based RPGs, that's just not my thing. Maybe Kingdom Hearts helped shape that because of how good it is. It's got the standard system of walking around to find enemies, you run into them and you fight them, but obviously you don't go into a whole new system or menu when you fight them, you just fight them right there as you're walking around. You know, it doesn't interrupt you too much. That's one of the problems that I have with turn-based systems is that it's such an interruption when you're trying to do stuff and random battles come up. Kingdom Hearts nails that, it does it perfectly. It's not hard to understand. It's simple. Press X to attack the enemies, you hit them, and you get some treasures when you defeat them. You can lock onto enemies to attack them easier, to make battles easier. You do have the same command system that you would in a turn-based RPG during the real-time stuff as well. It is harder to reach some certain stuff when you're in the middle of combat and you're getting hit and stuff like that. You're trying to scroll down through the menu, but you do have a shortcut option, and that does kind of equal that out. Lets you plan your own strategies for battle and all that kind of stuff. I do like the ability system in here. I do appreciate that it's not as free as some of the other ones. I mean, you can go crazy with some of the stuff in the later Kingdom Hearts games, but you have to be more resourceful in Kingdom Hearts 1. You don't have as many slots available for abilities and items and accessories and that kind of stuff, so you have to be very careful and strategic of what you plan on doing with that gameplay, and I think that is a good way of going about it. It can be frustrating in the moment, but that just encourages you to become a better player. There can be some difficulty hikes near the end of the game, especially with the ending part of the game. Of course, the ending part is supposed to be the most difficult part of the game, but there can be some big difficulty spikes at some points. Like that Heartless room before Final Rest. Fuck that shit. I was on that thing for 3 fucking hours trying to beat that fucking room, and it just keeps on throwing enemies at you, the most powerful enemies in the game. I know it's supposed to, it's the final part before you get to the big final boss, but god fucking damn, I was not prepared for how hard that was. I really enjoy the bosses in this game too. I think they're really fun. A lot of them don't have many random or unpredictable movements to them. You can understand their attack patterns pretty well and adjust around them. And, you know, finding out their patterns is pretty fun in this game. Love the designs in this game too, man. Designs are fucking awesome. Of course, it's Tetsuya Nomura. He's the designer of most of the characters in the Final Fantasy series. They're all iconic. Of course, he was going to create some fire fucking shit when he wrote that down. I think they're really creative and fit in well with that art style. But the one problem with the gameplay that got me flustered so hard was the platforming. I thought it sucked. I thought it didn't work with the mechanics that they had in the game. I thought there was a lot of cheap falls and a lot of cheap tricks that they pulled to make you have to do these platforming sections over and over and over again, especially in the Wonderland sections where you have to do a lot of platforming in there. That was really, really frustrating. And the vines, the fucking vine, I thought it was just very, very inadequate. And while I guess you could say I'm not entirely fucking on board with the jumping in this game and the platforming in this game, I understand it a little bit more. It's their first time trying this kind of game. They weren't going to get it right the first time. This is still the kind of early days of 3D gaming. They were on less than a decade in at this point, and this kind of platforming in this kind of way wasn't really nailed down just yet. And this was one of the first games that Square Enix was making like this. It's understandable that they didn't get it right the first time around, and while it may be one of my little complaints with it, I understand it a little bit more now. The camera too. I do understand why the camera was kind of wonky as well. I do think they did a much better job in later games with the camera. I think having it right behind the back of the player the whole time and zoomed out a little bit more allows you to see a lot more, and gameplay becomes a little bit more easier like that, but I think it's fine for what this game has. But now in conclusion, does this game hold up? Yeah, of course it fucking does. Kingdom Hearts 1, while not the most perfect game, Kingdom Hearts 2, I think this game is fucking awesome, and I don't know what the fuck that guy was smoking back then. It is a great experience. It's a great time. It is a full and perfect execution of what the developers set out to do, and that is to create essentially a Disney movie into a game, and by God, they fucking did it. And even more. The story, while being simpler compared to other Kingdom Hearts games, is great. It's a really cute story about friends and friendship and light versus darkness and good versus evil, and something that kids can get into and adults can get into just for the heart of it. The characters are classic. They hold up to this day. They got to develop over the years, but during this game, you get a great introduction to them. Since they went with a unique art style, the game holds up graphically to this day. And the gameplay, while being expanded upon in the newer Kingdom Hearts games, provides a great RPG-like experience, a great beginner RPG, I would say. But therein lies a major problem. Comparison. I think the reason that I did not look back at Kingdom Hearts 1 as fondly is because I was comparing it to what came after. And I don't know if that's entirely fair. They were just starting out here. They weren't trying to go for this grandiosity kind of thing that they're going for with newer Kingdom Hearts stuff. I'm sure Nomura had those ideas back then, and if it was successful, he would expand upon them, and he did. But they were just trying to go for a quaint, good story and a great RPG-like experience, and by God, they achieved that. And they laid out a blueprint for an amazing series going forward. And now that I can see this, I have much more appreciation for the original Kingdom Hearts. So if you're a person like me who doesn't look back on Kingdom Hearts 1 as fondly for these same reasons, I recommend you go back, play it again, see if you can change your mind. But now that we're at the end of this video, there's one more question that needs to be answered. Where does Kingdom Hearts 1 lay on my tier list now? That sucker is going straight from C tier all the way up to A tier. Fuck yes. It's going to be right up there with Kingdom Hearts 3, but still just below Kingdom Hearts 2. That game will always be S tier. Nothing will ever top that. That will be at the top forever and always. Unless Kingdom Hearts 4 tops it, which, you know, that would be amazing if it did. So that's all I have for this video. Thank you for watching all the way through. It means a lot to me that you did. Make sure to tell me down in the comments below what you guys think of Kingdom Hearts. What's your memories of it? What's your favorite memory of Kingdom Hearts 1 for you? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Also, make sure to subscribe, like this video, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord server, turn on notifications. Really awesome if you did. This has been Matt, and I will see you guys in the next video. Whatever that's going to be. So yeah,